Working in this industry is my passion. It is my purpose. Jojo Oliveri, Maverick. Hello and welcome again to J Curve, the Business of Property Management podcast. I'm super excited to have Dave Clare back, and as everyone knows from our first interview, Dave is my sole sibling. But this time I want to introduce Dave just a little bit more because he's quite an amazing man. Apart from the fact he's like my soul brother, he really is an amazing man and a thought leader that we all need to tap in to what Dave is sharing with us. So I'm just going to read this so that we get the story about Dave, or the overview. So Dave was born in Canada. Yay. He's got family, parents, and two brothers, and they came to Australia in 1981 when he was just a teenager, and obviously he fell in love with it. Since then, he's lived and worked in 3 different countries, and I seem to follow him everywhere, or he follows me.
No, you had it right the first time.
Not worldly by any great measure, but he says he's a person who has been at the coalface of leadership for 25 years in those 3 countries. And you're talking yourself down there, Dave, because you are remarkable.
Thank you.
So he's mastered under many great leaders, none of which, most of all, you will ever know. He's consumed every leadership training program, and that's true, book or other resource that he could get his hands on to feed his mind. And he hasn't stopped, he still does it. He's trained as a facilitator with 2 international personal and organizational development companies. This guy keeps learning and training, and he is an award-winning coach, a facilitator and a sales leader. He's invested over 10 years in coaching and facilitating personal and organizational development programs. His own corporate leadership experience is combined with his practical business coaching experience with small to medium-sized businesses and their leadership teams. And I think he's kind of like gone on to do big teams. I learned from, or Dave says he learned from every business person that he had the pleasure of working with, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm sure it gets pretty ugly at times.
It's been some ugliness, I assure you.
And he says, put simply, he's combined all this with tried and true leadership principles, ones that he still holds dear and uses today. So welcome again to the podcast, my soul brother, Dave Clare.
Glad to be back. Thank you. It's quite funny, Joe, because I think my mother wrote that because nobody else speaks that highly of me. Thanks, Mum. The
Yeah, that's right. What would we do without our mums?
yeah. Well, she's the one who taught me leadership, so
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
exactly. That's so
Yes.
true. Yes. Yeah. So, Dave,
Yes.
you joined us on the last podcast and we talked about what's changing in the property management
Yeah.
industry and why leadership is so important. But today you've got your third book that's just been published. So your third one that you've written by yourself.
Yes.
So
Correct.
fantastic. And what I would love to do, like I want you to just share, this is your time to
Okay.
share, about leadership and why it's so important, especially with what we're going through at the moment with this AI. It's getting louder and louder.
Hmm.
And I just saw on the news this morning that Amazon has released 14,000 people um, from their employment with Amazon. And I think that's just the beginning of it. But I don't think this is something that we need to be alarmed about. It's something that we need to listen to and
Yes.
say, how do we do the do differently? So, Dave, please share. You've got so much to share with us.
Thank you, Joe. So firstly, yeah, so definitely, I will talk about lead different, but I'll also talk about if I go this way, where I'm over here, humane. So I wrote humane just over a year ago, and that was about how AI is making workplaces more human. And it's really fascinating. So let's cut to the chase with all this stuff, the fear that people have. Yes, so Amazon's cut X number of jobs. Now people are going to go, what are we going to do with these humans that have just been displaced? Now, one example I always use is back when the tractor first came out. You know, the farming tractor.
Hmm.
How many humans do you think were out of work the very next day when the tractor became the new thing?
Hmm. Oh, yeah. There would have been a lot because it's
80,
all
about
individual.
85 million they predicted, but 85 million people and probably quite a few horses were
Hmm.
all out of business the very next day. But do we have 85 million people not working now because of that?
Hmm.
Then when the industrial age and automation came into manufacturing and that, all those manufacturing jobs are gone. And then are all those people now not working?
Yeah.
No, because what happens is new roles get created and new jobs get created.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, 15, 20 years ago, if you said, oh, we're going to have people who are going to drive strangers around in their cars and not call them taxis. You know, we're going to have like these Uber drivers, right? We're going to have people delivering food to your door, or picking you up whenever you want. Like we didn't have Uber drivers. We didn't have drone pilots. We didn't have, prompt engineers, which we have today. We didn't have, whatever it is. So, in every big thing like that, and please understand that I'm not naive. AI is on a massive scale. All right. So there's organizations that are out there, but those numbers look big, but I don't know what percentage of numbers that is of Amazon's total employee base. But those numbers are big. But for most property management organizations that are out there, businesses that are out there, AI will come and take away a lot of the work that you do. We talked about this before. But what we have to understand is organizations today, instead of needing to get bigger, we can just focus on getting better. Better first instead of bigger. Because a 20-person firm can probably now compete against a 40 or 50-person firm. You don't need 50 humans to be able to do that work, to have a larger portfolio of properties under your care.
Hmm.
Right? So going forward, you don't have to slash the people out. What you do is you release or unleash the humanity in your organization to do the work that humans must do. But we
Yes.
can look at all the doom and gloom stories of those large organizations, Joe, that are out there because they're cutting all these people and all that. Well, that's probably because a lot of those big organizations have tremendous amounts of inefficiency and ineffectiveness already embedded into that workplace. That
Yes.
that AI is just an amplifier. It's just exposed the inefficiencies or ineffectiveness of a lot of the roles and things that have been brought on. So you can go, oh, look, AI is killing all those jobs, or AI is actually identified where this organization has been totally inefficient or ineffective in the roles and responsibilities and jobs that they've created for people.
Hmm.
Right. So there's definitely a bit of that, but it also like that's at scale. So you got to be very careful about thinking as a small business. We should be learning from those large organizations, right? Because you sit there and it's funny. This is a leadership principle I've talked about for many, many a times is, I speak to a lot of business owners and leaders and, talk about these large organizations like, oh, we don't have the resources that these large organizations have. We don't have the cash. We don't have the intelligence. We don't have all these things that they have. We don't have that. So we can't do those things. And here's the funny part is they had all those things and they still went broke.
Hmm.
Those large organizations, they still went bust. They still had all the money, all the resources, all the strategy, all the intelligence in the world given to them, yet a lot of the major organizations still went broke.
Yeah.
So, so please understand that businesses don't run out of money. They
Hmm.
run out of ideas and innovation. And
Hmm.
ideas and innovation come from people, not budgets and not AI, right? So it's a finding game, not a funding game. So in our organizations today, we need to find the right people to bring into our organization and find that beauty that's inside them and unleash that humanity into our workplace.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So like that's the big environment at the moment. So if that's the case, the reason why this one is written is purely the fact is we can't lead organizations the way we led them in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't. What methodology and I will tell you right now, I don't even agree with the way we were leading people in the past. But in today's world, we should have resources for humans, not humans as a resource. Now, I believe we should have always had that, but we treat people like an expendable commodity, a means to an end, and they're just another resource for our business. Right? In the past, now in a world where AI can handle all that resourceful type stuff, the doing stuff, well, then what's going to be left is the human stuff. So what's the human stuff we talked about in your organization, that the work that humans must do? And then you need to be able to unleash that and then tap into that, innovation, creativity, and imagination and curiosity and all that empathy that a human has and release that. You
Yeah.
can't do that with the old leadership methodologies where we
Hmm.
treat, which most of leadership, Joe, what we called in the past was just modern management practices, barely any people leadership.
Yes.
So, so we need to lead different. And then the other part of this, which is in here, is that then we also need to develop leaders differently than we did in the past.
Yeah.
So we need to lead different. We don't need to tweak the existing model. We need to create a new model of leadership that makes the old model of leadership obsolete. Because the new world of business, the way we do business in the future, is going to make the old way of doing business obsolete. Therefore, we need to develop leadership in a different way. Because leadership will become even more important as AI can take care of all the management and the science and everything in your business.
Yes.
What's going to be left is the art part, which is the leadership part, and how do we become coaches, not bosses, and all these things that I talk about in It's Time to Lead Different. And then also, how do we learn different? How do we
Yeah.
develop leadership differently? So,
Yeah.
like, that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, that you've just shared so much. For anyone that's listening to this podcast, I think that you need to like play it in chunks and just, write down and reflect on what Dave is sharing because it's so true. It's like we've got this legacy leadership, all these old principles that they're working with that just does not fit with the way that we do business today. So they've got to let go of the legacy.
And it won't fit tomorrow, I assure you.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with everything Dave is saying. It's like, like roles just change. Our place in what we're doing, and let me say I'm talking about property management now. It is changing. It has been ineffective.
Hmm.
And that's why we've got all of these challenges that we have now. A lack of client service, a lack of the clients actually feeling valued. And so if they're not feeling valued, they're not going to pay for your service.
Yes.
Um, a lack of the team feeling valued because they don't quite understand the value that they're delivering to the clients. So it's all this misunderstanding. And what happens is the mindset becomes one that, everyone feels like the poor me syndrome. And, we don't get anywhere with that. So
No.
there's got to be this huge adjustment in what we're doing, an adjustment and alignment, and then an acceptance of, how we move forward in the future. And it's exciting. I think it's really exciting. It's not something to be worried about. I think it's something to, look at and say, how do I step into this world of AI and, like be guided by it, be guided by my leaders, be led by my leaders as a coach, because coaches work on fact, they don't work on fiction. Um, and, facts is what helps us to love what we do every day and know that we're actually, delivering on value and great service to our clients and to, those that, have chosen to employ us and represent their brand. So, yeah, I think it's really exciting. And leaders need to hear the message that Dave is sharing.
Yeah, and I think like for me, Joe, I live in fascination of the future. Like, not in a world of AI, but in a world with AI.
Yeah.
So it's like we got to look at like it's not going to be an AI world unless we give up everything and let AI take over the world. So what we should be making sure that we're all working on is how do we move into this future in a world with AI, not
Yeah.
of AI.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about living in fascination, so for me, I'm a little bit scared. I face a little bit of fears and a lot of excitement, right? So
Mm.
I have a healthy fascination which sits right between fear and excitement
Yeah.
because we've seen what was in the past and we can see the potential of it in the future, and so I
Mm.
like to sit in a healthy fascination. So I always encourage leaders to have a healthy fascination with the new world of work, all right, and what
Yeah.
that will look like in a world with AI, because it's
Yeah.
really important to understand. But one of the key points that you brought up earlier is and I wrote about this in the book, is actually the opening chapter of the book, is isness is the death of your business. How many times, Joe, have
Mm.
you heard in your travels, Joe, you don't understand how it is in our business, or you don't
Oh,
understand how it is in our industry? Right?
constant.
Right. Until somebody comes along and finds a different way and then
Mhm.
disproves the isness. So one of the things that we talk about in your own organization, and we may have touched about this on the previous podcast we were on, was that you need to think about your own business? How do you interrupt your own thinking in your organization? Because you can't take a new way of thinking and shove it in your own way of doing and expect it
Yeah.
to work, right?
Yeah.
It takes a new way of thinking to drive a new way of doing. So you can't take all this new AI stuff and all that's out there and go, we're just going to slap AI into our business, which is what everyone has started doing. And the
Hmm.
problem with that is it just amplifies all the problems. If you've got a bad culture, it makes the culture worse. If you get bad decision making, it makes bad decision making more prevalent. Right? So you've got to actually challenge the isness of your business. Start interrupting, asking epic questions about your business, and find a way that how would you put yourself out of business? This is the question I always ask leaders. What would you need to build 3 years from now that would put your current business out of business?
Hmm.
And they're going, huh? I said, like, yeah, I want you to find a way to put yourself out of business. Now, why the heck would you want to put yourself out of business?
Yes. But they do.
But there's a good reason for it. There's an
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant reason for it, which is because if you put your business out of business, you're just putting your old way of doing business out of
Hmm.
business. But if
Hmm.
someone else comes along and puts you out of business, guess what? You're out of business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So either you find a way to do it for yourself and then you interrupt your business and create the disruption. So if you want to disrupt your industry, you have to start by disrupting your own business first. That
Hmm.
starts with you creating an interrupting and challenging everything you believe to be true about your business and your industry. And when you
Yeah.
find all those things, that's your isness. And then you need to attack that isness by asking epic questions, right? And then create a disruptive model for your business, right? That actually replaces your old way of doing business with a new way. Then your industry will start paying attention and then you'll create an eruption in your industry, right? And that eruption in your industry is two eruptions. One is trailblazers get arrows in their backs, which is why this is a guide for trailblazers of revolutionary leadership to prepare
Hmm.
you the fact that you're going to get arrows in your backs if you start leading this way,
Yeah.
because all your competitors are going to go, hang on, you're stealing our team, you're stealing our customers, they're all coming over to you. Why? And they're going to get mad at you because you're compromising their business model. They're going to start slinging arrows at you. And then when
Hmm.
they realize, holy crap, that you've just created a new model that made their model obsolete, the next eruption is they're going to start to copy you.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they'll start doing it. So you go, well, that's the what I call the disruption flow cycle. You go from interruption to disruption to eruption. And
Hmm.
then when you get to the copycats, it's really cool because then everyone wants to be the next Uber, chauffeur, Didi, Lyft, you name it, all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But for your industry, here's the thing. Either you choose to create the disruption and lead it at best, or being prepared for it and respond at worst. But if someone else is doing it, you're going to have to react and you're going to be out of business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not
Yeah.
only talk about the way we lead humans, but you've got to structure your organization in a way now where that new leadership, because you can't lead the way we used to in a world that everything's changed. So
Yeah.
now we need to not only lead differently, but then we need to structure our organization differently so that leadership can thrive in that world.
Yeah, 100%. And, I've just returned from the USA where I went to some pretty amazing conferences there. And, what we're seeing already in this industry is that leaders or business owners are building bigger without the need for in-office team,
Right.
because AI is already supporting what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, like this is the sort of disruption that we need to look at, because they can build big, they
Right.
can scale fast, and what they've got is retention because they're on it. Property management is all about being on it immediately. And what we
Hmm.
see lags and time delays because the team is too manual. So yeah, we really are in a position where property management could be irrelevant within the next 3 to 5 years if we continue down this path. The trajectory is very, very different to the way that the industry is going at the moment. And again, I think it's exciting, Dave, and I think one of the biggest killers is not just leadership, it's complacency in leadership, where
Yeah.
they just think everything's going great. It's like nothing is always going great. You've got to constantly disrupt yourself so that you understand, we're constantly growing with the speed of technology and the advancement of AI. And that's, another area that they're kind of like letting it slide in the background.
Yeah. And so here's the fascinating part about that for me, Joe, is that um, growth is not the goal. Right? Growth is optional. Evolution isn't. You need to make sure your business is evolving. So whilst everyone's striving to get bigger and they can get bigger now, please understand that, this, what I call the grow or die, scale or fail, double your revenue, triple your headcount kind of thinking that businesses have, that's dangerous because bigger is not better. It's often just worse at scale. All right.
Yeah.
So if you do all this, and this is my problem is you can scale complexity, you can scale poor service, you can scale. Yes, you'll be able to use AI and get bigger, no question. But
Mm.
here's the problem. If you go back to the disruption cycle, disruption is the new change. Let's face it. Like the old, we talked, I think, before, like the 10 years, we used to have like 10 years of this, then 10 years of this, and 10 years of that. And those
Mhm.
change cycles where you can go one fixed state to the next. And like, okay, then let's just carry on with our new plan. But now those waves are coming faster. So disruption is a new change. Everything's getting disrupted. And those changes have gone from 2 years to 1 year to 6 months to 3 months. So the waves are coming faster and faster. So
Yeah.
when everything's being disrupted, Joe, that what's left is that one constant state of evolution. Right?
Hmm.
So everything's just going to keep evolving now. So if your
Yeah.
business isn't set up to constantly evolve and get better first and then bigger, better, bigger, better, bigger, if you're just getting bigger in a world where everything's going up and you're just going wider, you're going to get left behind. And you're going to be able to
Yeah.
scale the complexity. You're going to be scaling, you can grow as whatever you are because growth is assuming that you are who you are today, but you're going to serve more people because you have the capacity now with AI to serve more clients and things and do more things, achieve more, but you're not becoming more.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. And that's the danger. So growth is not the goal. Growth is optional, but evolution is mandatory.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
When you think about it, you need how do we steadily and progressively increase the capabilities of our business, thus our capacity for greatness can expand. But if you're just thinking about capacity rather than capability, you're going to expand into irrelevance very quickly.
Yeah, 100%. So, Dave, an outsider looking into our industry, and I know you've worked with a few leaders within our industry. What would be your advice now that, the leaders who embrace change and evolution, what would your advice be to them so that they don't start lagging behind? Because, even the ones who advance are still lagging, is what
Yeah.
I'm seeing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, definitely is to understand what your one true sustainable competitive advantage actually is in your business.
Hmm.
All right. Because if you think about all the property management firms that you've ever seen around the world, Joe, and I know you've seen probably virtually every kind, what can be copied? Their brand, their bricks and mortars, their ad copy, their tech stack, their offers, their services, you name it. Everything can be copied, right? I could go start a property management firm tomorrow and get my purple color out and do the things and create my own, purple property management and it would look like whoever's I wanted it to look like. And I could recruit and have the same processes, everything like that. What's the only one thing that they can't copy?
Someone's vision and their like personality.
Right. Yeah. Well, so put those things together is one thing that they cannot copy is your ability as a leader to capture the spirit of your people.
Mm-hmm.
So your one true sustainable competitive advantage is your ability to capture the spirit of your people. It's your culture, obviously.
Your uniqueness.
Right. So what makes you unique? So here's why we do what we do. Here's how we uniquely think about it. Here's that vision of the world we want to create. And here's the business that we're building in order to bring that into reality so we can evolve and stay relevant in the hearts and minds of the people we choose to serve. And we're going to be able to leverage AI and technology to build all these AI agents and to support our humans to work as we'll have a digital team and a human team. But we're going to capture the spirit of our people. And that digital team will have to operate within the same cultural framework as the humans would, right? Because we can't have
Yeah.
AI making decisions differently to humans and humans differently to AI. We're going to have all these digital Joes and digital Daves in our organization. They're going to be able to work with us, but they have to work within the same framework as Dave does and Joe does. But if you
Exactly.
don't have a way to capture that spirit and then harness that and make it like a magnet that can attract and retain the best talent in the world, because in the end, if culture is your only true sustainable competitive advantage, and culture is a magnet, and a magnet can attract and repel, your magnet will attract the right talent to your organization and repel those who don't want to be a part of it. Doesn't make them bad humans, they're just not ours.
Yeah.
And guess what? It will then, that humans, as they speak love about your business to the world, that's what creates your brand.
Yes.
Right. So
Exactly.
then your brand goes, hey, the market and consumer goes, people go, we love what this property management firm's all about. And then the market goes, wow, that sounds really cool. We love that too. How do we become a part of that? right? Because then you get the two halves of the heart to come together and everyone falls in love with why you do what you do. Your brand is then what attracts your customers or your
Yeah.
the people who want to rent properties from you and the people who want you to rent out their properties.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that's how you make money. So if you really want to get down to it, what do these leaders need to do? Well, it starts with getting your culture right because the only
Mm-hmm.
true sustainable competitive advantage you have is your humans.
Mm.
Yes, I can copy the same AI as you. I can copy everything else. So yes, you should be using AI to remain competitive. But if you want to stand out, it comes down to humans again. Therefore,
Yeah.
I need to be able to lead different. I can't keep leading them the same way I always led them.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm about to launch some articles on what I call the True North companies.
Yep.
And there's a few of them in the world. I'll share a couple now, and everyone knows. The first one I would say is Disney. You
Yep.
know, Walt Disney, he died a long time ago, but he's still got a presence in every
Mm.
decision that's made for that
Yep.
organization. But more so, everyone that works for that organization is protective of Disney and, wants to deliver the magic. And a couple of the other True North brands are, brands like Kiehl's, where I get my skincare,
Mm.
um, In and Out Burgers.
Yeah.
It's amazing. They are so true. They don't care what the competition is doing. They know their pathway. And they're very protective of it. And again, In and Out Burgers, the founders of that were killed a long time ago in a plane crash. But
Mm.
In and Out still holds the same true values. And, I've seen firsthand those that work for In and Out, they are protective. They're in love with the brand.
That's right.
So, if your team are in love with the brand and protective, they see your vision and they will protect your vision and they will attract the right clients to them as well. The clients will see the value, feel the love. So yeah, you're so spot on. Of
Yeah.
course. Of
Yeah.
course you are.
Right. But so they're in love with that, with once again, that invincible, like why I get to be part of this organization, and that's what actually creates the brand. Is because even the same thing with Apple. Who was
Yeah.
in love with Apple before any of us lined up outside the Apple stores? Steve Jobs was brilliant at many things, poor at many things as well. But one of the things he was very brilliant at is he did those big shows like to all his team. He put all the Apple
Yeah.
employees into
Yeah.
there and made them all follow. So the moment you walked in that Genius store, yes, all the marketing out there was
Yeah.
great, but the two halves of the heart come together perfectly on that moment, right? Because
Yeah.
they would sit there and they go, "Holy crap!" Like as much as I felt like this for the ads, I come in here and the experience I get from that genius in the shop because they love why they're here. Now, fascinating. You talk about Disney. If you remember when, God, who was it? Eisner took over. Like who's
Yes.
the?
Yes.
So there was a time when there was the guy who was I'm trying to remember was it Bob whatever his name was Iger? I think Bob Iger
Yeah.
was
Bob
the
Iger. Yeah.
was the CEO. Then Michael Eisner took over, I think, or
Yeah.
whatever. And then Disney went, and
Yeah.
then Bob had to come back because
That's right.
Disney is the only time in Disney's history that
Yeah.
it moved away from Walt's
Yeah.
value.
Yeah, and look what happened.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, and they've got to be very protective of that. And
yeah.
I'll tell you a little story. Apple, I've just come back from New York,
Yeah.
and I'm a
The Big
huge
Apple.
yeah. I went to the Apple store in the Big Apple,
Yeah.
yes. And Apple is one of my, True North brands that
Mm.
I'll be writing on. And I had to go into the Apple store because I've got two phones. I've got an Australian phone, I've got a US phone, and I was
Yeah.
having some difficulty. Well, the guy wiped my US phone. Um, so Jojo was not very happy.
Mm.
Um, but I went back the next day because I thought there's got to be a way to fix this. And I went back the next day and they were right on it.
Well,
And I said to them that, a lot of clients with different companies, they would be repelled from ever using that company again. But I've had so many good things happen with Apple, and I know it doesn't matter what you do, we're humans and humans make mistakes.
yeah.
But when we love a brand and we feel the value, we're forgiving as well. We understand. And that's something that we don't find with a lot of brands today is there's no forgiveness because they don't see the value. They see excuses and, the justification as to why mistakes have been made, blame even.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a
But
big lesson.
that's the difference between trust and loyalty. So in organizations, you can trust a brand, but when you're loyal to a brand, if they make a mistake, you're still going to hang around with them. Like I can trust people there, but I'm loyal to my partner. So I'm loyal
Yeah,
to my wife. So she can trust me, but also she knows that if anything happens, like I'm gonna be loyal to her no matter what situation or
yeah,
scenario I'm gonna be with her, right? So brands is the same. There's a whole bunch of companies you can trust that will do good business with you and all that. But the ones that you're loyal to and you feel that loyalty in return, they're
yeah,
the ones that you stay with. They're the ones that people
right.
work through things together and they,
Yeah,
that sense of partnership. We're in this together,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's the kind of brand that transcends, like it transcends a brand. There was a great book written many years ago, one of my favorite books of all time. It's called Love Marks and it's beyond
Oh, yes,
brand.
I've read it. Yes,
The guy from Saatchi and Saatchi wrote it.
yes.
And it just like there's only a handful of books outside of my own that I always recommend to people that have just been game changers. Pardon the corporate cliche bingo card of it, but they were for me in the way that I think about things. Definitely Reimagine by Tom Peters was the one that got me to think about this whole concept of disruption.
Mm,
But then that Love Marks is when I really started to understand the power of brand and where it comes from. And brand is an inside out proposition, which is why I said your people have to love it and speak with that love to the market.
yes,
Then the market can't help but fall in kind as well and fall in love with why you do what you do,
yeah.
which would be, one of my clients call this business love, he calls it. But from property management point of view, these are long-term relationships you're hoping to develop not only with the tenants but the landlords, and that should be a beyond a brand. That should be a loyalty thing and a love mark or a business love relationship that you want to develop in your organization with the humans.
Yeah,
It's just the human stuff. If we
most
get because the
definitely.
transactional stuff, even your Flusos, all that can handle virtually all the transactional stuff in a business already.
Yeah,
Right? So
exactly.
so what's left is the relationship stuff.
Yeah,
So we want a relationship. The key to relationship is trust. But when you go beyond that from a sense of purpose, this is what I call like the whole relationship cycle with purpose. Purpose requires you to be honest and
mm,
truthful about why you do what you do for the people you choose to do that for.
yeah,
Right? That
yeah,
honesty builds trust. That trust builds relationship. The embedding of that relationship is what builds loyalty back to your organization because you're presenting loyalty to those people. So you create this loyalty cycle. And if you have that, it's amazing.
Well, that kind of like segues into what I'd like to do on our next
Sure.
podcast, because what I see a lot in our industry, and again, I'm talking about property management, is that business leaders are fearful of letting a person go because of the relationship that they've built one-on-one with the client, rather than making sure that that relationship is with the brand
Yeah.
because their team is delivering on the brand promises because of the training and policies and everything that's there.
Yeah.
So, what I see in our industry is business leaders have a greater fear of losing team than they have of losing clients.
Yeah. Because
And that
one leads to the other in their mind.
yeah, exactly. So on our next podcast, because once again, we've just hit over 30 minutes,
Wow.
we
Is it
can
really?
go on. Yeah. So on our next podcast, Dave, I would love for you to share how business leaders ensure that their clients are in love with the brand
Yep.
and respect what the team are delivering on because they're representing the brand.
Yes.
Um, so
Hey, so
yeah,
let me leave a little lick of the ice cream, a little teaser then. So, because I work with this with a lot of organizations. So the question is, do your clients have a relationship with your team member enhanced by the brand? Or do they have a relationship with your company or the brand enhanced by the individual?
yeah, that's a great thought for everyone to reflect on.
And I will share with you the difference in those and why, which one obviously is going to create greater impact for you and why the other one happens.
Yeah, no, I
It's
love
not
that.
exactly why
So,
that one happens, but the one that you want and why
yeah,
that's not happening.
yeah, yeah. Well, everyone needs to stay tuned for our next podcast with the amazing Dave Clare. He's amazing because he's my soul brother. You know?
No other reason. That's it. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
That's how I got this gig in the first place. That's it.
No, he is an amazing individual and a beautiful human at that. He everything he shares, he's very passionate about. It's not something that he's just words. It has depth and meaning to it. So thank you, Dave. Is there a passing kind of like thought that you want to leave with everyone about what we've talked about today?
Yeah, a simple thing, the paradox of success. Please understand what got you to here won't get you to there. That includes your people, your process, your product, everything that you have that got you to where you are today will not always be the things that will get you to where you need to go tomorrow.
Love that.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so you have to be willing to challenge the isness of your business.
Love that. Love all Dave's,
Oh,
Dave is
charisms.
Clarisms, they're called. So yeah, Dave's got a whole book, I think, on Clarisms. So
Actually, one's being written at the moment. Yeah, there's been requests for a little. I think it's a coffee table book or just somebody to put your coffee cup on. It's just I don't know. It's
I love that. Well, thank you for, sharing all of that today and joining
my
us
pleasure.
again. And I know Dolly is going to put information about how to get a hold of your book.
Thank you.
Um, so I would advise everyone just grab that. The first thing you do is grab that after you've listened to the
Well,
podcast.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, lead Different by Dave Clare.
It's a very easy read. It's like 134 pages, but there's probably only like 100 pages of content. I took all the crap out, Joe, and
Good.
just left the meat and potatoes there. And it's actually one of the very few books out there that actually tells you what it looks like in action. So I've actually put like a day or week in the life of or a month of like if you actually do this, this is what it looks like. So not
Oh,
only
I love that.
here's all this,
Yeah.
but here's how to actually do it. So
Laid out for everyone.
yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. The playbook.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, literally, I mean, here's all the
Yeah.
reasons why you should do it, and here's what it looks like to
Yeah.
do it, and then here's what it would look like in action. And actually, the beauty, can I just give a plug out to all our clients because
Yeah.
I wrote this in honor of all our clients, the leaders, the trailblazers who are actually out there doing it. And instead of giving testimony to the book, and there's a property management organization in there as well. There's all these leaders who telling their story as to why they chose to lead different.
Oh,
Right, so
wonderful.
it's not like this thing and the methodology. It's just why they chose to lead different. Why they believe that we should be putting humans at the center of everything we do, and so this is testimony to all those leaders who are already out there doing it and implementing a fully integrated model where you can have human-centric organizations. So that's
Yeah.
a testimony to them.
Well, Dave, just share now how they can get their hands on that, and then we'll put everything in the links with the podcast.
Yeah, well, basically, you can either just go straight to my own personal page, daveclare.com, DAVECLARE.com, and there'll be a link to the landing page for the book. Otherwise, you go to circleleadershipglobal.com, lead dash different, and that will take you to the place where you can pre-register and order the book. There will be an
Wonderful.
Amazon link and everything like that as well. I mean, it's already up on Amazon now. But yeah, depending when we go live with the podcast, March 25th is when the book is available.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Well, you're brilliant, and I love everything you do, and thank you for
And
sharing, and everyone
attracts
get a
like,
hold of
Joe,
that book.
remember that.
Sorry.
Like attracts like.
Oh, thank you. That's so beautiful. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks again, Dave Clare, and we look forward to having you on the next podcast.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to J Curve, where we spotlight the journey of growing and thriving in property management business. Reach out and be part of the J Curve community. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and hit subscribe so you never miss out. Let's grow together on J Curve. See you in the next one.